Hey guys, it's Mr. Possible. Happy Friday. And I still haven't shaved yet. I could have done that over a week ago. Just some updates, real quick updates on the name change. Going to Possible, making myself Mr. Possible. I finally did it after weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. I did get a West Virginia license. And even as I walked into the DMV and fully expected to have more problems because I got a new birth certificate and I took the birth certificate to the DMV. First of all, it was excellent. There was no line in the information line. So I went right through. She had, some questions about the medical authority and blah, blah, blah. But she sent me through. She gave me my ticket. I got called 3 minutes later. And I went up and I laid out my stuff. And my assumption was, and this is funny, that if you go to information and they take your picture and they take all your information, that it somehow gets passed on in that little number that you have when you go up to the DMV window. Boy, was I wrong. She kind of looked at me as like, can I help you? And I'm like, I want to get a driver's license. She's like, and? Like I had to give her all the stuff I had just given information. So information is just checking over to make sure you have the stuff. And then, she asked me some questions and I, gave her the form and everything. She was typing it in and she's like, I could see the look on her face that she didn't know what to do. So she walks over into a office marked manager. And at this point in time, I'm just, thought looping. I love myself. It's okay, and expecting already that this whole thing's going to blow up. So she goes into her manager's office and I pull out my phone because I already have the DMV's nurse on my phone that I can call her, and she's very responsive. So she comes back and she's like, yeah, you said you had a medical letter, but do you have it with you? And I'm like, no, it was emailed to you guys by the DMV nurse. So the DMV nurse is the person that tells the DMV that I'm good to go on my eyesight. So she's like, well, we don't have it, or we're looking for it. And I, or whatever, I have to talk to my manager. So she goes and she does what she's doing. And I pick up my phone and I call Roxanne. And I'm like, hey, Roxanne, they're really struggling with finding, the form you sent a week ago. And I knew that this might be an issue because it was a week ago that I went in and tried to get my license that they rejected me because my birth certificate was not official, even though it was marked as official. And so, I said, can you send it again? She's like, and she's on the phone like, oh, I don't know where the form is, or I don't know what I sent. So then I'm like, okay. And I was patient, just thought looping the whole time. And then she comes back, the customer service representative, she comes back and she's like, it's great. Because I told her, look, I got her on the phone. I called her, she sent it. It's 4:30, right? And they close at 5. And I have found at the DMV, any excuse to get you out of there is happening. So, and I don't want Roxanne to go home, from the nurse's department in the DMV. So, I asked her to send it again. She sends it. First of all, she's asking me for the email that they're giving me, and she's confused because she's in Charleston and I'm in Charlestown, very close. So I have to spell this out. Thinking in my head, she's going to misspell it. All these possible things that could happen, but still not expecting this to go through. And finally, they get it. And then her manager walks over to me and she's like, yeah, we got the letter, but it doesn't really say anything specific. What's the medical voucher for? And I'm like, I can't see the normal vision. Like, it's 20/40 qualified and I see 20/50, almost 20/40, and the doctor sign off on it. And she kind of gets this glazed look in her eye, like she doesn't know what I'm talking about. So they come up with the idea, since they can't really approve it because the letter's too generic, apparently, from Roxanne, that they're going to give me an eye test. So they give me a 20/40 eye test. And before I even put my eyes, first they asked me to look in it without my glasses. And I said, look, I'm not going to be able to see anything in there. I know what I see. And so after I get done doing that and I see, and then I put my glasses on, she says, can you see the top line? And I'm like, no, I can make out some letters, but no. And I'm like, so after I get done the test, I'm like, so what was that? What line was that? She's like, oh, I can't tell you the line. I'm like, wait, so you guys don't change the lines? But no, that's not what I meant. I meant, is it 2040? Is it 2050? What? Because I thought that maybe they were testing me at 2050. That would be the logical thing to do. Now, it was 2040. So, of course, I failed that. And, I walked back over there and I said, of course I'm going to fail that. I don't see 2040. And the manager's like, oh, it's okay. I talked to Roxanne. You're going to mark you. You're good to go. So it was a little tense, but I was just always accepting the fact that I was going to go do something better if I didn't end up getting my license. And that's interesting because there's a series of events that happen that might appear to be negative in nature. And this concept in poker, it's called running bad, is that when you are a solid favorite and you lose, that's called running bad. And if you over and over again, you're on a down streak, you're on a losing streak. But here's the interesting thing about poker. It's a fallacy. It doesn't actually exist. There is no probability that is greater that you run bad or you run good. And there's no way to determine how long you would have these random instances of running bad versus running good. So what happens that we have these downswings and losing all of this? Of course, statistically, it's possible, but there's another possibility as well, and I think it applies to life in general. After something happens that is negative, such as, when I was first moving to West Virginia, we'll use my driver's license as an example. There's a first negative thing, which is I have to go and do this arduous process that I did in Virginia, and I have to do it in West Virginia and I did in Virginia and Maryland, sorry. I have to do it in West Virginia and hope that they act the same way. And these are government-run organizations, so it's highly unlikely they will. So that's the first negativity that seeps in. So then after that, imagine if I had not prepared myself or expected other possibilities other than the perfect case here. And I think it'll start to come into picture. So then after I moved to West Virginia, I don't do it for a year. So now there's another negative aspect to this, which is I haven't done it for a year. Maybe they won't do it. I have to go get an eye test, blah, blah. So now I've added to that. Then after that, and when I actually start to actually tackle this, I have to get an eye exam. And when I go to look for people that cover bioptic telescope lenses, I find that there are none. So I contact the Department of Blind. Here, you see, that's 3 strikes already. And if I was not trained emotionally the way that I'm trained, I would not be able to expect different outcomes than the very best outcome. So then after I find out that there are not very many eye doctors who do bioptic telescope lens tests, then I finally get in touch with the Department of Blind, which takes me a week to 2 weeks to get a response back. I go to their site, I do, pretty thorough investigation. Finally, I get a guy who's like, oh, we don't do that. So here's another negative response. So to a person hearing all of this, they might have thought, oh my goodness, that's all negative and it just keeps going down. You're going down instead of up. And then after the Department of Blind guy calls me back and he gives me another number, I reach out to them for 3 or 4 days. They don't know what I'm talking about. And finally, a woman gets back to me and she's like, oh, well, here's an eye doctor that you would have to do it, but I've never heard of a transfer. Never heard of a transfer. So here we are perceptively on this downward slope. And so I'm running bad at this point. That's what a poker player would term that. I lost a hand, I lost money, I lost a tournament, blah, blah, blah. I'm running bad. And they could definitively define exactly, the hands they lost and everything in between. So after I find the eye doctor, and then I get an appointment, and the doctor tells me I have to buy $1,000 bioptics, new bioptics, not the bioptics I already have, So that's considered a negative. And as well, that I have to contact this nursing department. And so after that happens, although that all goes somewhat well, the receptionist never follows through at the doctor's office. So now we're 2 or 3 or 4 weeks down the road from there, where, you know, I called her back the next week, got her to follow through. Then I get in touch with DMV nursing, and DMV nursing says we've never had a transfer, which is, you know, amazing to me. We've never had a bioptic lens transfer, telescope lens transfer. So now I'm like, wow, this is, you know, we're just keep going down, right? Perceptively, this is what's happening. And then after all of that, you know, there's this glimmer that I can actually just get a regular license. But then I have more issues with the doctor, and on and on and on. And then I go to the DMV, and my birth certificate, you know, isn't good enough, even though I have tons of paperwork. And then I go to the DMV, and they don't know what to do, and until boom, finally I have success. So what's interesting about this is the way I framed everything I just said. And when you frame it this way, it appears you're running bad. In fact, your mind is making this run bad. And if you think about me as a person, if I actually, at the start of this whole journey, which I actually think goes up instead of down, but that's because I reframe it. If I had started the first thing and said, oh, if I move to West Virginia, it'll be too much, I'm done. Well, right? I'm changing in my mind. Or if I move to West Virginia and I can't find an eye doctor and I'm done. Or I'll never find an eye doctor. Again, I'm changing what's happening. And as I get more and more and more negative, I broadcast negativity. So this is the key to running bad. It's a fallacy. It's not real. We can look at the whole experience totally different. So here's the first thing you can say. The first thing you can say is, I'm moving to West Virginia and I'm getting I need to get my license. There are other bioptic telescope lens drivers in West Virginia. So I'm going to be able to get a license. And I see better than most of those bioptic telescope lens drivers. So if you know that, now you know you're going to get a license. It has happened before. West Virginia was the leading state to do bioptic telescopes lenses. So that's very positive. And then the next step is, well, I can't find, eye doctor places that do this. Let me find some low vision, and they'll be more specific, and they might be able to give me some aids that will actually help me even more. And this actually led to very similar for me. And then the next step is, okay, so I fully expect that people in general are, forget things. They're doing the best with the tools they have. So I don't expect this person to follow through. I will go back and follow through. I am responsible. I will follow through with this person. So that, because I know it's going to move along, but it's going to move along slow because that's the nature of business. See, I'm setting my expectations and accepting that things are happening as they should happen and not as against me. The paranoia of running bad really isn't there. So then after I go and I do this, I fully expect the DMV to push back, because I've always had this experience with the DMV and they always come up with some form is missing because they have a streamlined system. So their streamlined system is, if you don't have one of those checks, back, to the end of the line. And then, Hawaii, the birth certificate. I was fully expecting something to happen, didn't expect it was birth certificate, fully expecting from Hawaii that, I need to follow through to make sure that I say that I want them to rush it so that I can get it on time. And then getting the birth certificate, acting on it, going to the DMV, and then fully expecting them to not really comprehend this unique situation. If you look at all of those things together, it's not running bad. It's just a rational, logical progression of events. And it's me accepting what is happening, me accepting the outcomes and going with them as they come. So what does all that have to do with doing the possible? Because there is no streaks of running bad or running good. So once you know that that's not a thing, you know that you can run bad or run good at any time, which basically means you just run. So while you're running, just take each pitfall or each, easy downhill, slope in the context of our metaphor, as it happened. I don't get too overwhelmed when something awesome happens, and I don't get too upset when something negative happens. And what ends up happening is you're just going through life and you find these little things that you then overcome. So that's kind of the way to get through the run bad, or what you might consider, oh, my life is going so bad, I can't believe, I lost my job, or, this happened or that happened. First of all, I was responsible and in control of this entire event from the time I moved to West Virginia up until now. I chose to wait a year. I chose the level, what I was searching these doctorate offices for. I chose, how much I was going to engage. I chose to accept the fact that the birth certificate would be enough. I chose all of those things. And when I put the control back into my life, then it's not running bad anymore. Now it's just normal. That's how it is. And you begin to understand that this concept of things are going negatively or things are going positively is all in your head. Things are just going. The question is, are you getting closer to your goal? Or are you getting further away from it? And if you look at it over a timeline, with the example of bioptic telescope lenses, I was always getting closer. I may not be getting closer as fast as I wanted to or as fast as possible, but I was getting closer. And as long as you're getting closer, you will reach the goal. Now, was there ever a time that I backed up? No, I never came to a wall that said, you can't do this, or people aren't driving with bioptic telescope lenses. And spoiler, that's actually not something to stop you from the possible either. It's just people saying you can't do something. So I hope this helps you when you're looking at challenges, when you're trying to do something, when you have this huge goal and things aren't going well. An example would be losing weight. You get on the scale, you're not losing weight. You get on the scale, you're not losing weight. You get on the scale, you're not losing weight. The interesting thing is how you frame that. I'm not losing weight. You could say, I'm not gaining weight, or I'm not gaining weight as fast. So therefore, I am going towards my goal. I'm eating better. I'm being healthier. You just keep track of what you're doing and that you're moving forward. If you are progressing, then that is fast enough. You don't have to progress at breakneck speed. And of course, we know what happens when you progress at breakneck speed. You fall down, you stumble, and then you have to get up anyway and start slower. So, guys, I use this little trick with everything I do. And I'm not perfect. I have days that I have, I'm depressed or I'm sad or I just don't know if I can do it, whatever. But I do always have this tool of, am I getting closer to my goal? And I hope you're getting closer to your goal. I'm Ted Possible, and please, I will be very soon, thanks to this technique. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.